Hey guys, tonight we're going back to a world of barbed wire borders, nuclear standoffs, and cold coffee in smoky control rooms. The Cold War wasn't really a war, not in the usual bang bang sense, but more of a prolonged global staring contest, full of bluffing, sweating, and pretending not to blink. And you, my friend? Well, tonight, you're the last one who remembers it all. You're standing where history hardened and cracked, in a place where the air still hums with leftover tension. You probably wouldn't survive a day here, though, not without accidentally starting World War III over a missed lunch break. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where and when you're listening from. I always love to know who's wandering through history with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Berlin. The Cold War isn't over yet, and neither is the winter. Your boots crunch over a frozen sidewalk near Checkpoint Charlie, that old gate between East and West, where tourists once bought postcards and spies traded frowns. You keep your hands buried deep in your coat pockets, not from the cold, but from habit. Everyone here walks like they're carrying secrets, and honestly, some of them are. A thin fog hangs between the buildings like a threadbare curtain, softening the brutalist angles of concrete towers and watchtowers. Somewhere behind you, a radio crackles out a muffled version of 99 Luftballons. You pause. Even the pop music here feels like it's spying on you. There's a certain kind of silence that lives in divided cities. It's not the peaceful kind. It's the heavy, watchful kind. The kind that settles in your bones and whispers, "Don't say too much." And you don't. You cross a patch of street where the wall once stood. Well, still stands, thick and gray and unapologetically ugly. It's covered in graffiti, cartoon suns, slogans in English, a stick figure dancing with a mushroom cloud, a cheerful reminder that someone, somewhere, thought nuclear war could use a splash of color. You run your hand along the rough surface. It's colder than the air, colder than anything really, except maybe diplomacy. And yet, here's the strange thing. Pigeons still nest in the cracks. Kids on the western side toss pebbles over for fun. And once, just once, you swear you saw an East German guard toss one back. That's the thing about walls. They separate, but they also connect. You wander down a narrow alley where a tiny currywurst stand still operates. Even though the owner admits he can't tell which side of Berlin he's technically on, he shrugs, hands you a paper tray dripping with ketchup, and says, "East, West, sausage is sausage." Hard to argue with that kind of wisdom. You sit on a cold bench and eat slowly. Behind you, floodlights illuminate the wall like a monument. In front of you, two teenagers try to trade cassette tapes across the border using a toy drone and a string. It goes about as well as you'd expect. The drone crashes, and both sides pretend not to laugh. Even the soldiers. Some say the Cold War was about ideology. Others say it was about economics. But sitting here, licking sauce off your glove, it just feels like a very long, very awkward standoff between people who mostly wanted to go home early. Here's a weird fact. In the late 70s, The East German government tried to develop a perfume that smelled like victory. It didn't sell well. Apparently, it had notes of synthetic leather, motor oil, and anxiety. You catch a whiff of something similar now from the guard tower. Some historians still argue over whether Berlin was the true heart of the Cold War. Some point to Washington or Moscow, but those places had power. Berlin had tension. It was the theater stage. Everyone played their part here. Even the janitors, even the pigeons. A tram rolls by, screeching on steel tracks. You glance up and catch your reflection in the window, a tired face lit by the yellow glow of a sodium street lamp. And for a second, you think you look like someone out of a spy novel. Then the tram's gone, and you're just someone chewing street food next to a political metaphor. You walk again, down past the remnants of old propaganda posters, slogans half peeled from stone walls, faces of forgotten men staring into middle distance. One eye seems to follow you, but it might just be the paint warping in the cold. At a small bookstore, tucked between two crumbling flats, you find banned Western novels sold under the counter. The owner, an old woman with a voice like sandpaper and hair like a Soviet flag, winks and hands you a copy of Animal Farm hidden inside a cookbook. She tells you, pigs are pigs, no matter what language they speak. You don't know whether to laugh or nod, so you do both. Night settles deeper. The cold bites harder. But somehow, Berlin keeps breathing. You lie down on a cot in an old hostel. The mattress springs creak like distant gunfire. The heater hums like an old radio. And as your eyes drift shut, you swear you hear the wall sigh, just a little. Like it too, is tired of standing. You sleep, and the Cold War watches, but only for now. You wake up to the sound of footsteps that aren't supposed to be there. Not boots, not marching, just soft-soled shoes, squeaking across a linoleum floor. You're not in Berlin anymore. You're in Washington now, a different kind, a front line. The walls are beige, the furniture is uncomfortable, and everything smells faintly like government-issue coffee and paranoia. This is the world of covert whispers, where pens hide microphones, trash cans have false bottoms, and the janitor might just be fluent in 5 languages and trained in Krav Maga. You blink the sleep from your eyes as you watch 2 men in trench coats meet in a diner. They order the same sandwich. They don't make eye contact, and somehow, by the time the check arrives, entire countries have shifted policy. You're not at the table, of course. You're 3 booths over, pretending to read a newspaper with a hole in the middle. It's not subtle, but subtlety isn't really the point here. The point is plausible deniability, a phrase that sounds fancy until you realize it just means we didn't technically say it out loud. You sip from a chipped mug of burnt coffee. The waitress, named Carol, judging by the pin on her apron, tops you off without asking. She's seen things. She probably knows more than the director of the CIA. She probably has classified documents in her purse, wedged between Tic Tacs and an extra pair of pantyhose. Outside, rain streaks the window in slow, dramatic lines. You imagine theme music playing, something moody, lots of cello, but all you get is the buzz of a fluorescent light and a faint radio playing doo-wop in the kitchen. One of the trench coats coughs twice. The other one drops a sugar packet. And just like that, a coded message is sent. What does it mean? Well, maybe they're planning to meet in Prague. Maybe they're trying to trade defectors. Maybe they just both like their tea unsweetened. Cold War communication wasn't always precise. Here's a weird fact. At the height of the Cold War, the CIA tried to use cats as spies. Yes, real cats. They called the project Acoustic Kitty. It involved microphones, antennas, and very confused veterinarians. It also involved exactly one field test, which ended when the cat ran into traffic. The program was scrapped shortly after. Cats, it turns out, are terrible at espionage, unless they're just pretending, which would actually make them brilliant. You exit the diner and step into a quiet street. Every window feels like an eye. You walk past a bookstore, a tailor, a barber shop, all potential fronts. One building smells like cinnamon. The other smells like freshly printed lies. A black car passes. You don't look at the license plate. Looking means remembering. And in this city, remembering means testifying. You end up in a nondescript office, no sign on the door, just a buzzer and a hallway that stretches longer than it should. Fluorescent lights flicker. The carpet is stained with secrets. Inside, a man in a gray suit asks you if you've ever been to Vienna. You say no. He smiles, like you just told a joke. He hands you a folder. It's empty, but somehow it still feels heavy. You thank him. He says nothing, and you both pretend this is normal. Historians still argue about how much of the Cold War was theater. Some say most, others say all. But if you've ever watched two people play chess without moving the pieces, just staring, you know the Cold War wasn't about action. It was about the illusion of readiness. And sometimes, sandwiches. You exit the building into late afternoon sunlight. The rain has stopped. The puddles shine like polished lies. You buy a newspaper from a stand, even though it's 2 days old. The headline reads, "Talks continue amid tension." It could be any year from 1947 to 1991. The font never changes. A pigeon lands on your shoe. You consider it. Maybe it's a trained messenger. Maybe it's just a pigeon. In the Cold War, you never really knew. You walk past a man feeding breadcrumbs to squirrels. He whistles something that sounds like Morse code. You don't ask. You don't want to ask. And then, just like that, the sun dips low, and the shadows stretch long and lazy across the sidewalks. You find yourself on a bench outside the Capitol, watching tourists take pictures of democracy. It's a quiet kind of absurdity. You lean back, close your eyes. The wind smells faintly of cherry blossoms and secrets. Somewhere nearby, a payphone rings. No one answers, but you hear it anyway. And in your dream, it never stops ringing. You're back in school. Not as a student. Not exactly. You're more like a ghost, drifting through the pastel-painted hallways of a 1950s American elementary school, where the most important subject isn't math or science. It's survival. A bell rings. Not for recess. Not for lunch. It's the one that makes your heart skip. Because this isn't a fire drill. This is a duck and cover. You watch as kids in collared shirts and saddle shoes scramble under their desks, hands over, their heads like a napkin, could stop a nuclear firestorm. One girl brings her lunchbox with her, a bright red tin with a smiling cartoon cowboy on it. Her bologna sandwich is more likely to survive the blast than she is. The teacher claps her hands calmly. Remember, she says, knees down, heads tucked. Be small and still. You look at her face. She's practiced that smile in the mirror. It almost hides the fear. It's hard to overstate how many children genuinely believed a wooden desk could protect them from a 10-megaton nuclear explosion. But that was the idea. Keep the little ones calm. Give them a sense of control. A little ritual before the apocalypse. And if we're being honest, adults needed it too. In the corner of the classroom sits a television on a rolling cart. Black and white, bulky, humming faintly. The janitor wheels it in like it's movie day. But instead of cartoons, it's a public service announcement. A smiling turtle in a civil defense helmet explains how to duck and cover in the event of a sudden, blinding flash. The animation is cheerful. The advice is absurd, but it's catchy. Here's a weird fact. In 1951, the US government commissioned a song called Duck and Cover, meant to be sung in classrooms. It had lyrics. It had a melody. It was nominated for an Educational Film Award. Yes, even Mass Panic had a soundtrack. You leave the classroom and walk down the hall. A bulletin board displays student drawings of mushroom clouds. Crayons can't capture horror, but they try. One kid's picture includes a smiling sun wearing sunglasses peeking out from behind a vaporized skyline. That one gets a gold star. Outside, a line of school buses waits. They're painted bright yellow, cheery, inviting, completely unarmored. In a nearby parking lot, parents chat casually. One mom wears curlers and a coat with shoulder pads so sharp they could be considered a defense system. She lights a cigarette, says to her friend, "Well, if it happens, I just hope it's quick." It's always said with a laugh, always with just enough pause after, just enough to let the dread stretch its legs. You climb aboard a bus, the seats are cracked, the windows foggy, and as it rolls forward, you hear a boy in the back explaining how his dad built a fallout shelter out of an old wine cellar. Stocked it with beans and playing cards, he says proudly. You could live down there for weeks. His sister nods, holding a stuffed animal tightly. Neither of them has considered what happens after the beans run out. You pass a billboard. Civil defense is common sense. It shows a happy family smiling inside a concrete dome. No one mentions that most cities didn't actually have enough shelters, or that the early warning system had a 50-50 chance of working on a cloudy day. Some historians argue that the Cold War's most lasting impact on American culture was anxiety. Not war, not weapons, but a permanent background hum of what if. And this hum started in classrooms like these, in school cafeterias that doubled as shelters, in guidance counselors' offices where students didn't ask about college, they asked about potassium iodide pills. You stop by the library. A dusty copy of Survival Under Atomic Attack sits between Charlotte's Web and Little Women. You flip through it. Diagrams, instructions, a smiling cartoon family eating dinner by candlelight while the world above turns to ash. The librarian eyes you from behind thick glasses. Keep it down, she whispers, or the Russians might hear. She's joking. Probably. The bus drops you at a quiet suburb. Every house looks the same. Low roofs, white siding, tidy hedges. But below a few of them, hidden behind laundry rooms and tool sheds, are bunkers. Some finished, some half-built. One with a homemade air filtration system built from a vacuum cleaner and sheer optimism. In one garage, a man is labeling canned peaches. Expiration date, 1985. He whistles a Glenn Miller tune as he stacks them into neat pyramids. His teenage son rolls his eyes. Dad, the bomb's not gonna drop. But the man just shrugs. It might. And if it does, we've got peaches. You walk home under the pink-blue haze of sunset. The streets are quiet. The lawns are mowed. The mailboxes are full of catalogs, bills, and civil defense brochures. A breeze stirs the leaves. And for a moment, everything feels still, peaceful even, until, somewhere in the distance, a siren wails. Just a test, probably, but you duck anyway, just in case. You open your eyes, and it's suddenly hot. Sweat drips down the back of your neck. Cicadas whine in the distance. The ocean licks the shore with a lazy rhythm. But no one's in the water. You're standing on the edge of something enormous, not a beach. A moment. It's October 1962, and you're in Havana. The sun beats down like it's trying to grill your thoughts. Palm trees sway gently, but there's tension in the air, like the whole island is holding its breath. Behind you, a radio blares salsa music. Someone's roasting pork in a back alley. A rooster struts past, like he's unaware that the world might end in, 30 minutes. Because this, my friend, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. And you, lucky you, are the last one who remembers it. Up close, across the horizon, you see the glint of Soviet ships on the sea. Closer inland, Cuban soldiers patrol with rifles, slung casually, as if guarding a neighborhood barbecue, rather than a global flashpoint. And in your hand, you're holding a cup of thick, bitter Cuban coffee, so strong it could start its own rebellion. A man next to you, wiry, sunburned, chain-smoking, leans in and says, "If the missiles go up, at least we'll die caffeinated." He laughs. You don't. You walk through a narrow alley where propaganda posters peel under the heat. Fidel Castro stares down at you, half smiling, half lecturing, forever mid-sentence. Kids play with sticks and a flat soccer ball near a wall, painted with a red star. A mural reads, "Patria o muerte," homeland or death. Catchy, bit intense for a playground. But hey, branding is branding. At a nearby checkpoint, soldiers sweat through their uniforms. One holds a transistor radio to his ear, face grim. He's not listening to news. He's listening for silence, because silence might mean someone just pressed a button. Here's a strange fact. At the height of the missile standoff, American U-2 pilots flew over Cuba daily. One nearly got shot down because the pilot got lost and accidentally flew over Siberia. Imagine being the guy who started World War III because you forgot to check the compass. Some historians still argue whether that flight was accidental or a warning. Like most things in the Cold War, the truth is buried somewhere beneath 3 layers of fog and one guy muttering in Russian. You wander into a cantina, dim lighting, a warped jukebox, and a ceiling fan that spins like it's trying to leave. Men drink rum with the casual confidence of people who've read the headlines and decided to toast the end of days. Someone turns on the television. It flickers. Kennedy's face appears. Tight-lipped, hair perfect, voice level. He's explaining blockades and threats and unacceptable levels of risk. The bar falls silent. Even the fan seems to slow down. Someone mutters, "He blinks," or Khrushchev does. One of them's gotta. You think about that. How close the world came to losing its eyebrows that week. Two men, 5,000 miles apart, each with a finger hovering over a button. Not out of hatred, just out of fear and ego. You step outside and feel the heat press down again. The street is quiet. Even the chickens have gone still. And then, boom, a backfire from a car. Everyone jumps. Someone drops a bottle. Someone else ducks. Then laughter, nervous and high-pitched, spreads like a breeze. No mushroom cloud, just bad timing. You walk toward the harbor. Boats sit still. In the water, their flags limp. In the distance, U.S. ships form a blockade, floating steel warnings. No missiles yet, just waiting, everyone waiting. And yet, amid all this, life continues. A couple dances to a scratchy record on a rooftop. A vendor sells shaved ice from a cart. A group of teenagers argues about whether the Rolling Stones are better than the Beatles, despite having never heard either clearly. Because even when the world tilts toward doom, teenagers still debate music. Some constants never change. You sit on a wall and sip the last of your coffee. It's cold now, bitter and oily, but you drink it anyway. There's a humming in the air, not from missiles, not from engines, just the electric pause of history, suspended. No one moves, no one knows. Just, maybe, just, not today. The sun begins to set. The horizon glows red. Not the bad kind, just the usual, beautiful kind. The kind that says, not yet. And for the first time in hours, you breathe deeply. Cicadas return. The fan spins again. The jukebox in the cantina picks up a soft tune. Tomorrow, maybe, the crisis ends. Maybe someone blinks. But for tonight, the world holds, and so do you. You're underground now. Not metaphorically, literally, 12 feet beneath a tidy, suburban backyard in Kansas, sitting inside a fallout shelter that smells like canned pineapple and old socks. The Cold War wasn't just fought in embassies and war rooms. It crept into living rooms and basements and little concrete bunkers like this one, built by dads with weekend toolkits and a sense of dread they didn't know how to name. You sit on a cot made of metal bars and itchy blankets. Across from you, a battery-powered lantern flickers like it's trying to make up its mind. The walls are painted cheerful beige, probably an attempt to make annihilation feel more homey. Next to the door, there's a shelf stacked high with dusty board games, Monopoly, Sorry, and a Cold War favorite, Risk. Above you, the world might still be intact. But down here, time has no meaning, just days, beans, and the occasional argument over who forgot the powdered milk. A little girl is coloring in a workbook titled Fun Things to Do When the Bomb Falls. Page 1 is a crossword puzzle. Page 2 is a diagram of how to dispose of radioactive clothing. She's using crayons. Her dad, thick glasses and thinner patience, checks the air filter again. It's made from a vacuum motor and some aluminum foil. He swears it could keep the air clean for weeks, or at least until someone farts. You flip through a booklet titled Life in the Shelter. It has helpful advice like rotate food stocks regularly, boil water for 20 minutes, and, bizarrely, maintain morale through shared hobbies, because nothing says the end of civilization like a friendly round of Scrabble. Here's a strange fact. In the early 1960s, the US government released official shelter blueprints, complete with suggestions for psychological entertainment. One suggestion, mime classes. Yes, mime. Apparently, nothing soothes atomic anxiety like silent pretend box walking. Some historians still debate how effective these shelters really were. Sure, they'd protect you from the initial blast. Maybe. But radiation? Collapse? The awkward silence after 6 days? Without coffee? Let's just say expectations were optimistic. A teenage boy strums a guitar in the corner. He knows 3 chords. One of them is wrong, but everyone claps anyway, because there are only so many things to do, and pretending helps. Pretending is how people cope when their backyard becomes a bunker and the future looks like canned spaghetti. At mealtime, everyone gathers at the tiny folding table. Tonight's menu: rehydrated eggs, tang, and something labeled meat product that jiggles with suspicious enthusiasm. You chew slowly. Try not to think. Just chew. The conversation is light. Movies. Baseball. Whether or not the president is bluffing. One man insists the Soviets blinked last time. Another claims to have a cousin in NORAD. No one wants to talk about the silence on the radio. Later, you lie back on the cot and stare at the ceiling. Someone's drawn stars in glow-in-the-dark paint. They flicker gently, fake constellations for fake skies. A ventilation fan hums. A child snores. And somewhere, maybe far above, the wind brushes past a scorched treetop. You wonder what the world will look like when you finally open that door. Will the grass still grow? Will birds still sing? Will there be people? Or just more bunkers? You dream, not of fire, not of ruin, but of a picnic. Sunlight, laughter, real apples, not freeze-dried ones. And as the shelter rocks ever so slightly with the weight of worry pressing down from above, you drift off, still breathing, still waiting, still hoping the world hasn't ended, just gone quiet for a while. You're back on the surface now, but things still feel strange. The ground's solid, the sky's blue, and the air doesn't hum with Geiger counterclicks. Yet something about the day feels staged, like it's wearing makeup. You're standing at an international expo in Moscow, but instead of rockets or tanks, you're staring at a dishwasher. Welcome to the kitchen debate, where the Cold War boiled over in an American model kitchen, with 2 men arguing about capitalism and convenience, surrounded by toasters. It's July 1959. You're in a full-scale replica of a modern American house, built smack in the middle of Moscow as part of a US cultural exhibition. Everything's shiny, pastel, and slightly too perfect, like a sitcom set waiting for the laugh track. There's even a refrigerator stocked with fake food, No one dares eat the plastic ham. Vice President Richard Nixon stands near the sink, sleeves rolled up. Across from him, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev squints at a microwave like it might explode. They don't shout. Not really. They talk loud, wave hands, lean in like two neighbors arguing over a fence neither of them built. And you're there, holding a pamphlet about the American way of life, which includes helpful tips like smiling and owning two televisions. The translator looks exhausted. So does the microwave. This wasn't a summit. It was theater. The kind where nobody remembered the script, but everyone pretended they knew their lines. Nixon points proudly at an automatic can opener. Khrushchev points at a photograph of Sputnik. You have dishwashers, he says. We have space. Touché. Here's a weird fact. The kitchen set was so convincing. Khrushchev reportedly asked if real Americans actually lived this way. When told yes, he replied, "Your capitalism is very impressive. On paper." He smiled, then stormed off, then came back, then stormed off again. The Cold War was exhausting, even in air-conditioned showrooms. You walk to the next exhibit. A robot dog wobbles past you. A crowd gathers to watch a demonstration of a blender that can crush ice. A Soviet technician leans in and whispers, "We can crush ice too, with tanks." Not everything at the expo was passive-aggressive, though. There were jazz concerts too. Warm saxophones melting frosty diplomacy. Kids lined up for Coca-Cola. One elderly babushka tasted it and declared it too sweet, like lies. Historians still debate whether the kitchen debate actually mattered. Some say it was pure PR. Others believe it was a key moment in soft power. The idea that culture, not bullets, would win hearts. But if you were there, watching two world leaders argue over cabinet space, you'd swear history was just weird sometimes. You wander out of the exhibit into Red Square. It's huge, echoing with the shuffle of polished boots and tourist sandals. On one end, Lenin's tomb, cold and immovable. On the other, a pop-up Pepsi stand with prices in rubles. You sip, it's flat. Symbolic, maybe. Nearby, a Soviet photographer is snapping photos for propaganda posters. He asks you to smile. You do. Later, your face appears on a pamphlet with the caption, "American visitor enjoys Soviet hospitality." You weren't asked. You pass a young boy juggling apples, an old man playing chess alone, a woman in heels sweeping the sidewalk like she's preparing for a parade that will never come. And above it all, the sky remains suspiciously cloudless, as if the weather, too, has chosen to stay politically neutral. Evening comes. You return to the now empty kitchen exhibit. A single light buzzes overhead. The fridge door hangs open. A lone fake carrot rests inside, still unbitten. You sit on the countertop and swing your legs. The silence isn't threatening. It's just tired. And as the wind rustles the edges of glossy pamphlets scattered across the floor, you realize the Cold War wasn't just fought with bombs or spies. Sometimes it was fought with blenders and brochures. You lie back. The tiles are cool. The air smells faintly of polish and pride. And somewhere in the distance, a dishwasher finishes its cycle, clean, empty, waiting. It's dark again. But this time, not from night. You're on a narrow street in East Berlin, where every corner has a shadow and every shadow might have ears. You feel the cobblestones beneath your feet, slick with drizzle and history. Checkpoint. Charlie is somewhere nearby, but you're not headed there tonight. You're here for something riskier. This is where the dance happens. A slow, careful waltz between freedom and fear. The checkpoint tango, as the Americans like to call it. Not an actual dance, of course, but it might as well be. A car idles near the curb, headlights off. A man in a wool coat leans against a lamppost, pretending to smoke a cigarette he hasn't lit. You're early, or maybe late. With espionage, time is elastic. What matters is the moment, and whether someone blinks first. Your contact arrives with the subtlety of a brick. A woman in a bright red scarf, chewing gum loudly and complaining about the weather. You think, definitely not a spy. Then again, that's the point. She drops a paper bag at your feet. Inside, a loaf of bread, a passport, and a photograph. You don't ask questions. You just nod and walk away like you've forgotten your own name. Behind you, the street remains still. Too still, which is how you know someone else is watching. Here's a weird fact. During the Cold War, East German intelligence, the Stasi, maintained one of the largest informant networks in the world. Roughly 1 in 6 citizens was either a spy or being spied on. That's not just paranoia. That's policy. You duck into a cafe that never turns off its lights. Inside, the clink of cups and low jazz hum almost makes things feel normal. Almost. A man at the counter reads a newspaper upside down. The waitress scribbles notes in a pad that doesn't have any orders. You take a seat by the window. Outside, a couple walks by, hand in hand, laughing. Could be love. Could be cover. That's the thing here. Everything is double-coated. Even the truth wears a disguise. Your tea arrives. Too much sugar. You sip anyway. It's warm, and that counts for something. In the back room, behind a curtain, there's a radio that only picks up certain frequencies, numbers stations, monotone voices reading out strings like 7, 14, 2, delta, 99. To the average ear, nonsense. To the right ears, instructions, destinations, maybe even death sentences. You listen, not because you understand, but because it fills the silence in your head. Some historians still argue whether espionage tipped the balance of the Cold War. Did secrets stop missiles? Did lies prevent war? Or was it all just a very expensive game of hide and seek with nuclear stakes? You exit the cafe and head toward the wall again. This side is bare. No graffiti, no jokes, just reinforced concrete and a silence that swallows. Footsteps. You pass by a section where a tunnel once ran. It collapsed. 2 men made it out. 1 didn't. They say his ghost walks the tunnel still, holding a map with the wrong coordinates. You don't believe in ghosts, but you don't not believe in them either. Not here. A searchlight pans overhead. You freeze, even though no one's called your name. The light moves on. You continue walking. And now, the western side. Louder, messier, but freer. Someone offers you a cigarette. You decline. They shrug and light 2 anyway. 1 for me, they say, and 1 for the nerves. You take the long way home, through alleyways that once held the checkpoints, past apartments wired with microphones, past a bakery where a man once smuggled messages in loaves of rye. And when you finally climb into bed, a small room, shared walls, thin curtains, you hear a distant train, not loud, not fast, but steady. It reminds you that movement is possible. Even here, even now, you pull the blanket over your head, and for the first time in days, you let your guard down. Just a little, because the dance never ends. But sometimes, you can rest between songs. You're underwater now. No, not drowning, just submerged. Metal walls curve around you like the inside of a steel whale. Pipes hiss gently. Somewhere above, the ocean presses down with the weight of entire continents. You're aboard a nuclear submarine, a quiet blade in the Cold War's deep, dark arsenal. The lighting's dim. Everything smells faintly of sweat, oil, and instant mashed potatoes. There's barely space to stand upright, and personal privacy. Let's just say you've gotten to know your crewmates' socks far more intimately than you ever wanted. The year is 1983. You're somewhere under the Arctic ice, floating silently just off the Soviet coastline. The mission: stay invisible. You're not supposed to be there. You're not even supposed to exist. But that's kind of the theme of the Cold War, isn't it? You're leaning against a missile tube. Inside, a warhead powerful enough to make history irrelevant in zero point 0.4 seconds. But don't worry, it's just sleeping. Probably. The commander walks by, chewing gum like he owns the ocean. He nods at you, then disappears into the sonar room. You follow, because the sonar room is the only place on board with a chair that isn't bolted upright at a 90-degree angle. The sonar tech taps his screen, squints. Nothing. Still nothing. Then a blip. Not a ship. Not a whale. Probably just a Soviet fishing boat with suspiciously advanced radar. Totally normal. Here's a weird fact. During the Cold War, submarines would sometimes shadow each other for weeks, playing a high-stakes underwater version of Marco Polo. One slip of the rudder, one misheard ping, and it could all spiral into headlines. Or worse, silence. Some historians still debate the so-called phantom collisions, submarine incidents that were denied by both sides and scrubbed from logs. Were they real? Were they hallucinations in the dark? Or just stories told to scare new recruits? Back in the galley, someone's playing cards on a crate of instant noodles. Another guy is strumming a guitar with 3 strings, humming something that vaguely resembles Hotel California. You hum along. Wrong lyrics, but no one corrects you. Dinner is powdered beef stew, and something that claims to be peach cobbler. You eat it anyway. At 500 feet below sea level, you lower your standards. Later, you slip into your bunk, a thin pad in a stacked coffin of aluminum. Above you, pipes. Below you, torpedoes. Beside you, a sailor snoring with the steady rhythm of someone who's made peace with fate. There's a Polaroid taped to the wall near your bunk. It's of a family, smiling, squinting into the sun. The photo is curling at the edges, but you can still make out the caption, "See you in 90 days." It's been 97. The submarine shifts, a gentle tilt. maybe turning, maybe surfacing. No one tells you. You don't ask. You close your eyes and listen to the low hum of the reactor, to the distant creak of pressure, to your own heartbeat, steady as the propeller. This place, this underwater purgatory, isn't meant for comfort. It's meant for deterrence, to remind the world that even silence can threaten. And yet, there's peace here too, in the routine, in the discipline, in knowing that as long as you're down here, nothing's blown up yet. You dream of air, of grass, of wrong chords on a guitar in the sunlight, and somewhere in the depths, the sea keeps its secrets, and so do you. You're in a room with too many radios and not enough chairs. The air is thick with static, cigarette smoke, and quiet rebellion. This isn't a battlefield. This is a frequency. You're sitting in a cramped East German apartment with the windows blacked out, listening to forbidden music drift through the walls. And not just music, ideas, broadcast across borders, hidden in chords, coded in lyrics. Welcome to the secret concerts of the Cold War. Outside, the streets are quiet. Inside, the needle drops on a vinyl bootleg of Elvis. It's scratchy. It skips. It's illegal. And it's electric. The record spins, and you suddenly remember what joy sounded like. A teenager nearby sways with her eyes closed, mouthing words she's never officially been allowed to hear. Her younger brother sits cross-legged on the rug, holding the antenna of a battered radio like it's a magic wand. On the dial, Radio Free Europe, sometimes BBC, sometimes static. A man in the corner takes notes in a ledger marked potatoes. Inside are lyrics, quotes, jokes, all smuggled by sound. Here's a weird fact. The West used balloon drops to deliver records and leaflets into Eastern Bloc countries, actual balloons. Some popped too early. Some floated off to Finland, but a few landed perfectly, wrapped in hope, tangled in trees. You head out into the hallway. Someone's painted a peace sign next to the elevator. It's half scrubbed, still visible. You take the stairs. At the bottom, a basement club. Graffiti covers the walls. Guitars, slogans. Someone's weird attempt at drawing a lion. A group of students tunes up. They're not great, but they're loud. And that's the point. One boy plugs in a makeshift amp. Wires frayed, sparks flickering. He strums once. It feeds back. Everyone cheers. This isn't about music. This is about presence. You sit on a crate and watch the crowd gather. Not big, maybe 20, 30 souls. All quiet, all listening. And then, boom, a cover of Should I Stay or Should I Go? They sing it in broken English, shouting over one another. Someone slams on a tambourine, like it owes him money. It's messy. It's defiant. It's beautiful. Somewhere above, an informant makes notes. Somewhere below, a tape recorder rolls. You think history won't remember this concert, but someone will. Someone always does. A girl passes you a homemade flyer, hand-drawn, barely readable. It says, "Next time, Bowie night. Bring batteries." You nod, fold it into your coat, like a secret, like a seed. Some historians still argue about the power of culture in the Cold War. Was it decisive? Was it just noise? But for the people in these rooms, behind thick curtains and thicker fears. It was oxygen. You leave the club late. The sun hasn't risen yet, but birds are already testing the silence. You walk past the bakery, past the checkpoint, past the place where someone once carved freedom into wet cement. Your shoes are scuffed. Your ears are ringing. But your mind, wide awake. And as you reach your apartment and climb into bed, still clothed, still buzzing, you think, maybe this war won't be won with bombs. Maybe it'll be won with rhythm. You sleep, and somewhere, a cassette spins. A bootleg beat hums through the wall, and history, quietly, begins to tap its foot. The mailroom smells like glue and stale coffee. You're sitting under a buzzing fluorescent light, sorting envelopes that may or may not contain state secrets, threats, or just grandma's potato salad recipe. This is the unglamorous side of the Cold War. No trench coats, no coated umbrellas, just paper cuts and paranoia. You're working inside the CIA headquarters in Langley, or maybe it's the KGB in Lubyanka. Hard to tell. The architecture's similar. Beige, oppressive, built for secrets and backaches. The difference is the language on the vending machine. You sort through envelopes stamped confidential, top secret, and personal. Oddly enough, personal always feels the most dangerous. You open one. Inside, a handwritten letter, folded neatly. It reads, "Tell her I forgive her. Tell her I miss the snow." It's unsigned. There's no return address. You stare at it longer than you should, then move on to the next. Somewhere in this stack is a coded message. Maybe it's in the ink. Maybe it's in the typos. Maybe it's in the way one envelope smells vaguely of aftershave and regret. You learn to stop asking questions. Just log it, tag it, move it. Here's a weird fact. During the Cold War, both the CIA and the KGB experimented with using invisible ink made from substances like lemon juice, milk, and even urine. Yep, imagine decoding nuclear launch codes with a hairdryer and a bottle of lemon-scented Febreze. Some historians still argue about how much classified information got lost in the shuffle, not burned, not stolen, just misfiled. Entire operations forgotten because a courier had food poisoning and a file got shoved behind a vending machine. You find a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. It rattles. You open it slowly. Inside, a cassette tape. No label, no case. You slide it into the office player. A dusty Panasonic with a tendency to choose side B. The tape hisses, then a voice. Calm, measured, female. This message is for Agent Sparrowhawk. Your contact will arrive at the cafe in Prague at exactly 3:17 p.m. local time. Bring the red umbrella. Do not speak unless spoken to. Then silence. Then static. Then an accidental recording of someone singing along to ABBA. You rewind it. Play it again. Still ABBA. You write a note in the logbook. Possible code. Needs analysis. Also, catchy. You stack the rest of the mail. One envelope slips from your hand. It's pink. It smells like perfume. You flip it over. Return address. The Kremlin. Addressee. Central Intelligence Agency, Langley, Virginia. Attention, Mr. James. You open it. Inside, a greeting card. On the front, a cartoon bear Waves under a rainbow. Inside, the message reads, "We know where your satellites sleep. Happy holidays." It's signed, "With love, Moscow." You're not sure whether to laugh or file it under mild threat. You choose both. The mailroom clock ticks on. Someone brings donuts. Someone else says, "Don't eat the jelly ones. They're bugged." You laugh, "But don't eat the jelly ones." By now, you've sorted enough envelopes to know that war isn't just fought in the skies or the seas. Sometimes it's fought in stationery, in letterhead, in the space between words. You finish the last package, stamp it, seal it, slide it down the chute, and listen to it disappear. You lean back, stretch, crack your knuckles, and wonder, how many wars have ended because someone misread a memo? You shut off the light, lock the cabinet, turn off the cassette deck. The hallway is quiet. The shadows are still. And somewhere, in another mailroom, someone's opening a letter with your handwriting. They'll wonder what it means. And maybe that's the point. You're knee-deep in snow, and something doesn't feel quite real. The mountains are sharp against a bleached sky. The air burns your lungs in that dry, high-altitude way. But the silence, that's what really gets you. Welcome to Afghanistan. It's 1985, and you're in the shadow of a war no one officially declared. A war that everyone pretends isn't happening, which, as usual in the Cold War, means it's happening everywhere. You're walking a mountain pass, boots crunching on snow that hides old landmines and older secrets. Below, Soviet troops are trudging up a rocky incline, with weapons slung low and eyes scanning the ridgelines, like ghosts might be watching. They might be. You duck behind a boulder as a convoy rolls by. Trucks, tanks, one flatbed stacked with crates labeled medical equipment. You know they're not carrying bandages. A boy leads a donkey the other way, completely unimpressed. He's humming a tune, something that doesn't belong in this timeline. It takes you a second to place it. It's a small world after all. Where did he hear that? Here's a weird fact. During the Soviet-Afghan War, CIA agents smuggled in cassette tapes of Western music and portable radios, disguised as Qurans. It wasn't just guns that shaped the battlefield. It was Whitney Houston. You crawl up a ridge and meet a group of fighters wrapped in wool and resolve. The Mujahideen. To some, heroes. To others, rebels. To everyone involved, necessary. They offer you tea. Always tea. Black, overboiled, full of sugar and hospitality. One man shows you a photograph of his brother. He used to be a school teacher, he says. Now, he trains others how to disable tanks using ropes and clever curses. You pass around the tin can radio. It picks up BBC World Service. Barely. There's talk of a summit. A possible withdrawal. Maybe. If the weather's good. If someone blinks. But up here, no one blinks. You can't. Your eyelashes might freeze. Some historians still debate how pivotal Afghanistan was in ending the Cold War. Did the Soviet Union bleed out here in slow motion defeat? Or was it just another brick in a wall already crumbling? Hard to say. When you're watching a 10-year-old hold a rifle with more focus than most generals, a supply drop lands overnight. Parachutes unfurl like faded flowers. You help unload them. Blankets, food, boots that are 2 sizes too small, and something new. A Game Boy still wrapped in plastic, still blinking. History has a strange sense of humor. Later, you sit by a fire. Someone plays a flute made of scrap pipe. Someone else roasts flatbread over coals. In the distance, gunfire, close enough to note, not close enough to panic. A man tells a joke about Gorbachev and a camel. You don't understand the punchline, neither does he, but everyone laughs anyway. You lie back and look at the stars. They don't care who wins. They never do. Snow begins to fall, soft and quiet, like an apology. You close your eyes. You're not warm, but you're still breathing. And for now, that's enough. You're in a dark room, staring at a screen full of lights. Red, green, yellow. They blink in rhythm, like an orchestra only a few understand. Except you're not at a concert. You're inside a command center, somewhere deep beneath Colorado. This is NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or, as some people call it, the place where someone might accidentally end the world because of a bird. It's midnight, October 1983. The coffee's cold. The tension isn't. You're slouched in a chair designed for posture, but not for comfort. A technician beside you taps at a keyboard like he's trying to stop a heart attack with sheer willpower. On the radar, a missile, maybe, then two, then hundreds. This is not a drill. Alarms scream. People scramble. Someone knocks over a cup of instant noodles. A general barks orders. Another officer mumbles something about launch protocol. You sit very, very still. This is it, right? The moment everyone feared. The domino finally tipping. The breath before, the fire, and then a pause. One voice cuts through. Could be a glitch. You'd be amazed how many near apocalypses begin with a sentence like that. Here's a weird fact. In 1983, a Soviet early warning system falsely detected incoming American missiles. One man, Stanislav Petrov, decided not to report it as an attack. He waited. He trusted his gut, and he may have saved the world. Some historians still debate just how close we came that night. 5 minutes? 30 seconds. The truth is, the closer you are to the button, the less time you get to think. The room goes quiet. The radar clears. The blips disappear. Turns out, it was sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds. Clouds. The most powerful military machine in history was almost undone by weather. Everyone exhales at once. One guy laughs. It's the kind of laugh you only hear from people who just narrowly avoided becoming dust. You walk the hallway, hands shaking slightly. The vending machine is still broken. You kick it. Nothing. In the break room, someone rewinds a VHS tape of war games. No one's really watching. It's too soon. A woman at the table says, "We live on a knife's edge, don't we?" You nod. Then she adds, "And the knife's probably made by the lowest bidder." You both laugh nervously. You find a quiet stairwell and sit on the steps. Your breath echoes in the concrete. You look at your watch. You check the date. Still alive. Somewhere above, a janitor is whistling. The hum of machines fades. The world ticks forward, one fragile second at a time. You return to the control room. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. You take your seat again. Eyes on the screen. waiting for the next blip. But for now, there's just silence and blinking lights and the slow, tired knowledge that history almost sneezed and decided not to. You're in a theater, but the audience is wearing suits, not tuxedos. And the drama tonight: lasers, missiles, and cowboys. Welcome to 1983. Again, but now you're in Washington, sitting through one of the most ambitious PowerPoint presentations in the history of paranoia. The room is cold, the lights are dimmed, and all eyes are on a man who just said, with a straight face, that he wants to build lasers in space. That man is Ronald Reagan, and this is the Strategic Defense Initiative. The press, with their usual subtlety, calls it Star Wars. You sit quietly, watching the president gesture toward charts and diagrams with unsettling confidence. Satellites, particle beams, things that sound like science fiction, but come with billion-dollar budgets. Reagan smiles, like your favorite uncle. If your uncle could launch kinetic kill vehicles into low Earth orbit, he says, we seek not to destroy, but to protect. You nod, like everyone else, because in this room, not nodding means someone might ask what you would do about nuclear annihilation. Here's a weird fact. One proposed SDI weapon was a brilliant pebble, a term for a guided mini-missile that would float in space and intercept enemy warheads. It sounded cute. It was not. Some historians still debate whether SDI was even feasible. The technology was, at best, theoretical. At worst, inspired by a Buck Rogers marathon. But strategy isn't just about what you can do. It's about what the other side thinks you can do. And the Soviets, they panicked. You walk out of the press room and into a hallway where aides whisper in acronym clusters. SDI, MAD, MERV. It sounds like a game of Scrabble with world-ending consequences. Man from the Pentagon hands you a leaflet titled Victory Without War. You ask if it's fiction. He doesn't laugh. Later, you're at a cocktail party full of policy advisors and nervous bartenders. Someone drinks vodka out of irony. Someone else says, Reagan just raised the stakes to space. You reply, at least it's not underwater this time. Nobody smiles. Everyone's tired. Back in your hotel room, you flip on the television. A rerun of the Jetsons. You watch George Jetson float to work in his bubble car and think, maybe this is what we were aiming for all along. Not war, just the idea of something better. Out the window, the city hums softly. A helicopter passes overhead. The moon is full and silent, watching us with the same detached curiosity we gave it when we planted a flag on its face and never cleaned. Up after ourselves. You lie in bed, lights off, brain still glowing from phrases like space-based interceptors and mutual assured disintegration. And you wonder, if we really did build a shield in the sky, would it protect us, or would we just build a bigger sword? The room is quiet. Your eyes close. Somewhere in orbit, a satellite spins slowly, blinking in patterns no one sees, and history, once again, drifts slightly off course, toward the stars. You're surrounded by applause, but no one's really clapping, not with feeling, not with their hearts. You're in the middle of Red Square, 1986, and the Bolshoi Ballet has just finished its final pirouette. The dancers take their bows. They are elegant, radiant, and, in at least one case, about to disappear. Because tonight, like many nights before, someone's going to defect. You're sitting in the 10th row of the ornate, state-approved cultural performance, where velvet seats cradle bureaucrats and informants in equal measure. Behind you, a woman whispers, "She's too good to stay here." You nod. One dancer lingers longer than the rest during the curtain call. You catch her eye. She doesn't blink. That's how you know. The Cold War wasn't just fought over missiles or maps. It was fought in pirouettes and piano chords too. You slip out the side door into the long Moscow night. It's snowing lightly, the kind of snowfall that looks romantic until it soaks through your shoes. You walk fast. Your contact waits at the back of the building, near the service entrance. He's smoking a cigarette, like it's a countdown. The dancer emerges. No makeup, no costume, just a gray coat, a red scarf, and a duffel bag that might as well weigh 1,000 pounds. No one speaks. You both walk, quickly but without panic, toward a waiting car that doesn't belong on this street. Its windows are tinted. The license plate is clean. Too clean. Here's a weird fact. The Soviet Union had special squads to prevent defections during overseas performances. They were called minders. They watched everything. Curtain calls, dressing rooms, even restroom breaks. Sometimes the dancers weren't even allowed to carry their own passports. Some historians still argue about whether the arts were a true Cold War weapon or just an emotional distraction. But when you watch someone risk everything for a chance to breathe free, you stop debating. You reach the car. No words, just a nod. She climbs in. The driver pulls away slowly, like it's any other Tuesday. You stand there in the snow, hands shaking, just enough to make it real. Then, behind you, a voice. Where is she? You turn. It's a man in a fur hat and a too-tight trench coat. He's not shouting. That would be too obvious. But his breath fogs like steam, and his fingers twitch near his coat pocket. You shrug. Lie badly. Say something about a taxi. He doesn't believe you, but he doesn't follow. Not yet. You walk away, heart pounding in sync with your footsteps. Back at your hotel, the television plays a rerun of Swan Lake. You watch, even though you've just seen it in real life. This version feels quieter, less dangerous, more honest. You think about the dancer, where she is now, what she left behind, what she's afraid to miss, what she hopes to find. You lie on the bed, not bothering to undress. Your boots leave wet marks on the carpet. The room hums. The radiator sputters. Outside, Moscow snows quietly, on top of another secret, and in some safe house across a border, a dancer sleeps, for the first time in years, without choreography. It starts with a beep, then another, then dozens. The kind of sound that usually means popcorn is ready, except this time, it might mean you're not. You're in a Soviet bunker, somewhere outside Moscow. It's 1983 again. Same year. Different. Kind of almost ending. The control panel is blinking like it's had too much coffee. A young officer stares at the screen. He looks pale, sweaty, like someone who's just been told the world is ending. And it's his job to do something about it. Because according to the machines, America just launched a full-scale nuclear strike. 1 missile, 2, then 5. Flying fast, 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 and then stillness. You're not the officer. You're in the corner, half forgotten, holding a clipboard no one's asked for. But you can see the math. You can see the clock. You've got maybe 10 minutes before Moscow turns to vapor. Unless someone blinks. And he does. His name is Stanislav Petrov, and he chooses not to push the button. No retaliation, no second strike, no mutually assured anything. Just a long, painful pause. He tells his superior, it's a false alarm. He has no proof, just gut instinct, and frankly, a deeply human hope that the machines are lying. They were. Here's a weird fact. The alarm was triggered by a rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds, fooling Soviet satellites into thinking they'd detected missile launches. Clouds. Again. Some historians still debate how close we came that night. Some say minutes, others say seconds. But all agree, if Petrov had followed protocol, you wouldn't be listening to this now. You walk outside the bunker later that night. The air is damp, the stars are out. You think about how quiet it is, how normal the night sounds. For something that almost didn't exist. A dog barks in the distance. A car rolls by. Somewhere, a child is learning to ride a bicycle. Someone's burning onions in a kitchen. Someone's falling in love in a phone booth. You sit on a bench and watch the world continue. Not with fanfare, not with parades, just dinner, laundry, heartbeat. That night, you dream of sirens, but only faint ones. They start, then fade, then vanish, and in their place, a single human voice saying, wait, and then silence. You're in a factory, but no one's making bombs. They're making copies, dozens of them, stacked paper, humming fax machines, reams of carbon sheets passed hand to hand like sacred texts. You're standing in a back room of a Polish shipyard in 1980, and what's being printed here is far more dangerous than any missile. They're making pamphlets, protests, poetry, schedules for strikes. One headline reads, "We won't build tanks if we can't buy bread." Outside, the winds of solidarity are beginning to howl. You wipe toner from your fingers and pass another leaflet to a courier who tucks it inside his coat like a secret he's proud to carry. A woman tapes one to a bathroom mirror in the Lenin shipyard cafeteria. By lunch, it'll be gone. By evening, it'll be remembered. Someone hums an old worker's song. Not loudly. Not yet. Here's a weird fact. During the Cold War, the Polish underground press, known as samizdat, was so prolific that entire books, plays, even newspapers were distributed by hand under threat of arrest. The ink was cheap. The words were priceless. You step into the shipyard proper, grimy, sprawling, alive with the clank of metal and the spark of rebellion. Men in hard hats pass notes instead of wrenches. Graffiti crawls across the bathroom walls. We are the Union. Truth is stronger than steel. The loudspeaker crackles. Management calls for productivity. The workers respond with a song. You walk past a bulletin board filled with quotes, some biblical, some Lenin, some Lech Wałęsa, who's not a prophet, just a man with a mustache and more guts than most generals. Someone gives you a badge. It says Solidarność, solidarity. just one word, but you feel taller wearing it. Later, in a dim apartment above a bakery, you gather with others by candlelight. The power's out again, or maybe it's been cut. Someone reads a poem about bread. Someone else reads a letter smuggled from Gdansk. And then, music. A cassette tape, barely audible. A folk song played on a nylon string guitar. The kind of tune that stays in your bones longer than fear. Some historians still argue how much solidarity contributed to the end of the Cold War. But if you'd been in that room, watching exhausted hands turn pages and tired eyes light up at each word, you wouldn't argue at all. You'd know. You walk home in the snow. The streets are mostly quiet, except for the whispers of neighbors trading rumors, like currency. Did you hear what happened in Lublin? More students joined. Today, they can't arrest everyone, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. No one knows why, but no one minds. You stop by a telephone pole. Someone's pasted a flyer there. It's already half torn, flapping in the wind. It reads, "You are not alone." You stare at it. You nod, and you believe it. Because sometimes, the loudest revolutions begin in whispers. You're at a dinner table, but diplomacy is on the menu. It's 1985, Geneva. The silverware is polished, the vodka is room temperature, and the stakes are somewhere between unthinkable and historic. Across from you sits a man with eyebrows like snowy cliffs and a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Mikhail Gorbachev. He's new, fresh off the political assembly line, still smelling like perestroika and cautious optimism. Next to him, Ronald Reagan, chewing on his talking points like they're medium-rare steak. Welcome to the vodka diplomacy years, where peace came in toasts and threats were served with polite grins. You sit quietly at the edge of the long, glossy table, not a key player, just someone watching history unfold with a fork in one hand and a notepad in the other. The first course is beet salad. The second course is arms reduction. By dessert, everyone's slightly tipsy and pretending that nuclear disarmament is as easy as apple pie. Here's a weird fact. Reagan once told Gorbachev, during a break in negotiations, if aliens invaded Earth, we'd fight them together. Gorbachev reportedly paused, blinked, and replied, "Yes, of course." Which means that, technically, Earth had a Cold War-era alien contingency plan. Some historians still argue whether Geneva was a turning point or just a photo op. But if you'd been in the room, seen the way Reagan leaned forward when Gorbachev laughed, or how Gorbachev stopped twirling his pen when Reagan mentioned Star Wars, you'd know it mattered. Not everything was smooth. The translators worked overtime. One phrase about limiting intermediate-range missiles was briefly interpreted as limiting intermediate-range muffins. No one laughed. Too tense. Too tired. After dinner, you step into the hallway. It's lined with portraits of leaders who shook hands while planning invasions. You lean against the wall and hear muffled voices from inside the conference room. The Americans are quoting Jefferson. The Soviets are quoting Lenin. Then someone, probably a Canadian, quotes John Lennon. Imagine all the people. Silence. Then, polite applause. You walk outside into the frosty Geneva night. The snow has started to fall again. A limousine idles nearby, its exhaust curling like a cigar. Inside it, a VCR plays back footage from earlier that day. Handshakes, waves, smiles like well-fitted masks. You think about how strange it is that some of the most important conversations in history took place between two men with translators, cocktails, and completely opposite definitions of the word freedom. Later, in your hotel room, you flip through the summit folder. So many pages, so many footnotes. But there's one quote scribbled in Reagan's margin: trust, but verify. And below it, someone's handwritten in Russian: hope, but hide your aces. You close the folder. The minibar hums. The wind outside picks up. And in that quiet little window of maybe for just one night, the Cold War feels tired, and peace, however temporary, feels just tipsy enough to believe in. You're standing in front of a wall, not a metaphor this time, a real one, concrete, thick, ugly, covered in spray paint, broken dreams, and a few surprisingly good caricatures of Ronald Reagan. It's 1989, and you're in Berlin. The wall is still up, for now, but it's different tonight. It hums. There's music playing. Someone's brought a boombox. It's blasting Wind of Change, even though the Scorpions haven't released it yet. Prophetic? Or just good taste? The crowd is enormous. Students, workers, tourists, punks with mohawks, pensioners with thermoses of warm beer. They're not shouting, not angry, just waiting, with a kind of electricity that doesn't come from Raj, but relief. You touch the wall. It's damp, cold, alive. Someone hands you a hammer. You don't ask who. You don't ask why. You just know. You swing. The concrete cracks. Not dramatically. This isn't a movie. But enough. Enough to make someone else pick up a hammer. Then another. Then 1,000 more. Here's a weird fact. The fall of the Berlin Wall wasn't announced with fanfare. It was the result of a miscommunication. A press officer stumbled over his notes during a live briefing and said East Germans could cross the border immediately. No one corrected him. So they did. Some historians still argue over whether the wall fell or was simply ignored into irrelevance. Either way, by midnight, people were dancing on it. You step back to watch. An old woman breaks off a piece of the wall and holds it to her chest like it's her grandson. A young man spray paints Wir sind ein Volk. We are one people in neon green. Someone throws a shoe over the top. No one knows why. It feels important. On the other side, East German guards just watch. Some smoke. One leans his rifle against the wall and eats a sandwich. No one tells him to stop. You cross. Over. There's no gunfire. No alarm. Just silence. And then cheering. Not loud. Not wild. Just a ripple of joy. So honest, it feels unfamiliar. You keep walking into a part of the city that once felt like a map you weren't allowed to touch. It smells the same, but the air tastes different, less filtered, more possible. You stop near Brandenburg Gate. Someone is playing a violin. Badly. You don't mind. You sit on a curb, watching people hug strangers like cousins. A kid next to you licks a piece of concrete. His mom shrugs. It's history, she says. You can't stop them. The wall was meant to last forever. But forever, it turns out, is vulnerable to boredom, miscommunication, and just the right amount of graffiti. You lie back on the cold stone. The sky is clear. For once, no helicopters, no tension, just stars. You close your eyes, and when you sleep, you dream of open roads, of cities with no checkpoints, of bridges instead of borders. And when the morning comes, you wake up in one city, not east, not west, just Berlin. You're in an office building, but everything feels off. The walls are beige, the chairs are missing wheels, and somewhere, a copier is endlessly printing blank pages. Like it too, forgot what it's supposed to be doing. Welcome to the Soviet Union in 1991, and it's not falling with a bang, it's unraveling with a yawn. You sit at a desk that once belonged to someone important. You know that because there's a little brass nameplate on it that says important. The phones don't ring anymore. The typewriter ribbon ran out last week, but the janitor still shows up every morning, mopping a floor no one walks on across from you. A young man in a military uniform is using a calculator to balance ration tickets, except the calculator doesn't work, and the ration tickets are expired. Still, it keeps him busy. This is not collapse in the cinematic sense. No fire, no revolution, just bureaucracy losing its will to live. You wander the hallways, past office doors that haven't opened in months. Behind one, a stack of unsent memos. Behind another, someone's collection of potato vodka and desperation. At the end of the corridor, a TV plays state news to no one. A man in a gray suit declares, "Everything is stable." The power cuts out before he finishes his sentence. Here's a weird fact. During the final days of the Soviet Union, entire ministries continued to operate for weeks after being officially dissolved, because no one told the janitors, or the printers, or the guy in charge of making tea. Some historians still argue over what exactly ended the USSR. Was it the arms race? The economy? The people? Maybe it was just exhaustion. You step outside. It's winter, obviously. The snow is falling, but it looks uncertain, like it's asking permission to land. A woman nearby is selling onions on the sidewalk. She used to teach Marxist-Leninist philosophy. Now she haggles over rubles that won't be worth anything by Tuesday. Two teenagers walk by, arguing over whether jeans or bubblegum were the real reason the West won. You walk past a mural of Lenin, faded and peeling. Someone has spray painted a smiley face over his mouth. You don't know whether to laugh or salute, so you do neither. You duck into a small cafe. The lights flicker. The menu is blank. You order tea. They give you hot water and a polite shrug. In the corner, someone is playing chess with himself. He loses. Back outside, a crowd is gathering in the square. They're not shouting. They're not singing. They're just standing, watching the flag above the Kremlin slowly lower. No music, no ceremony, just fabric folding in on itself. And then a new flag rises, tricolor, hopeful, mildly confused. You walk back to the office, pack up your things, an empty stapler, a half-used notebook, a pen that no longer writes but still feels official. You take one last look around. The silence is soft, almost kind, and for the first time in decades, there are no speeches, no warnings, no orders, just an entire system putting itself to sleep. You're standing in Red Square again, but this time there are fireworks, not the scary kind, not missiles, not flares, not warning shots, just fireworks, colorful, chaotic, a little bit cheesy, but entirely free. It's December 31st, 1999. A new century is knocking, and the Cold War, already a memory, already melting into myth. You're older now, not just in years, but in knowing. The crowds are laughing. Tourists and locals mingle where soldiers once stood stone-faced. Kids chase each other across cobblestones that once echoed with boots. Someone is selling ice cream in the snow. You buy one. It drips on your glove. You don't mind. A man with an accordion plays a familiar tune. You can't place it, but your heart recognizes it before your brain does. It's not a national anthem, just a song without borders. You sit on a bench, alone but not lonely, watching as the night sky lights up with sparkles that mean nothing, and yet somehow everything. The Cold War didn't end in a final battle. It didn't slam shut like a vault. It just fizzled out like an old television shutting down with a quiet pop. Here's a weird fact. In the years that followed, people started collecting pieces of the Berlin Wall, tiny chunks of concrete, sealed in plastic, labeled and sold like souvenirs. History, commodified, terror, turned into paperweights. Some historians still argue who won. Capitalism? Democracy? Genes? But sitting here, in the cold, you wonder if that was ever the right question. Maybe it wasn't about winning. Maybe it was just about not losing everything. You look around. The buildings are still here. The people are still laughing. The music is still playing. The ghosts of the Cold War, the spies, the missiles, the walls, they're quieter now, still lingering maybe, but mostly watching as the world turns without them. You lie back on the bench and look at the stars. They look the same as they did in 1962, in 1983, in 1991. Maybe they always will. A child tugs on your sleeve. He offers you a sparkler. You light it, and for a brief, trembling moment, you hold a piece of light in your hand. A small rebellion, a small hope, a small proof that some things don't have to explode to be bright. You close your eyes. The air is crisp. The ground is firm. And the silence you hear now isn't fear. It's peace. Or at least something close enough to sleep. Your journey through the Cold War is over. No alarms, no codes, no more countdowns. Just memory and the soft hum of history slipping into dream.